In 1995, an Amish family of 7 disappeared from their Pennsylvania farm, leaving behind only a note indicating they were visiting relatives for the weekend. They never came back. A decade later, at a remembrance service, the community was looking through old belongings when they noticed a shocking detail everyone had missed, a clue that would finally reveal what had happened to them. The morning sun cast long shadows across the wooden floorboards of Levi Lapp's New Holland, Pennsylvania, home. It was an annual day, not of celebration, but of solemn remembrance. 10 years, a full decade, had passed since his brother Aaron, sister-in-law Miriam, and their 5 children, Eli, Michael, Sarah, Ruth, and little Daisy, had vanished without any explanation beyond a simple note left on their kitchen table. Levi adjusted one of the wooden chairs that had replaced his usual living room furniture. The transformation of his home for that day's service had begun before dawn. Where his comfortable sofa usually sat, neat rows of simple chairs now faced the front of the room. The coffee table had been moved to the barn, making space for the gathering that would soon fill his home. The service had started promptly at 8 o'clock, with members of their old order Amish community quietly filing in. Men wore their black suits and broad-brimmed hats, women their prayer coverings and dark dresses. For 2 hours, they had prayed, sung hymns in Pennsylvania Dutch, and shared memories of the Lapp family. Minister Yoder had spoken eloquently about faith in times of trial, about accepting God's will even when understanding eluded them. Now, with the mantel clock showing past 10, the formal service had concluded. Most of the congregation had left, returning to their farms and daily duties. Only a small group remained: close family, dear friends, and a few community elders who had known Aaron since childhood. Levi looked around the diminished gathering. His cousins, Samuel and Rebecca Beeler, sat close together. Samuel's beard now showed gray that hadn't been there 10 years ago. Mary Stoltzfus, who had been Miriam's closest friend, dabbed at her eyes with a white handkerchief. Old Joseph King, whose farm bordered Aaron's abandoned property, stared at his folded hands. "Shall we?" Levi asked softly, gesturing toward the kitchen table they had moved to the center of the remaining chairs. The group drew closer, forming a tight circle. On the table lay an arrangement of precious artifacts: photographs, personal belongings, and at the very center, protected by a clear plastic sleeve, the note that had changed everything. Levi picked up the note with careful hands, though he had memorized every word years ago. Written in Aaron's careful script, it read, "Gone for the weekend. Visiting family for church matters. Will return Monday. Don't worry about the animals. Arranged for neighbor boys to help. Aaron." "Every year we read this," Mary said softly. "Every year I wonder what church matters could have taken them away so suddenly." "And which family?" Samuel added. "We are their family." The community had checked with every relative, every connection in Ohio, Indiana, and even up to Ontario. No one had seen them. Esther reached for a photograph, one taken just days before the disappearance. It showed the whole family on their front porch. Aaron, tall and bearded in his straw hat. Miriam beside him holding baby Daisy. The other children arranged by height, all smiling in their simple clothes. Behind them, laundry fluttered on the line. "Such beautiful children," she whispered. Eli would be 23 now, Michael 21, Sarah 19, Ruth 14, and little Daisy. Her voice broke. Daisy would be 10. Levi picked up the manila folder that contained copies of the police reports. The official investigation had been brief, hampered by the community's reluctance to involve outside authorities beyond the initial report. After a week of questioning neighbors and finding no signs of foul play, the case had been marked as a voluntary disappearance and eventually went cold. "We did what we thought best," Joseph King said, perhaps reading Levi's thoughts. "We are not a people who run to the English police with our troubles. We believed they would return." "But they didn't," Rebecca said quietly. "And now we gather each year wondering if we should have done more." Daniel Zook, another community member, reached for one of the photos from the police file. He studied it intently, his brow furrowing. It was the same porch photograph Esther had been holding, but this was the official police copy, slightly larger and clearer. Levi, Daniel said slowly. Your brother's family? They were planning to leave that morning for the weekend. Yes, that's what the note said, Levi replied, confused by the question. Why? Daniel turned the photograph toward the group and pointed at the laundry line visible in the background. Look here, fresh washing hanging on the line. See how the clothes are still dark with moisture at the bottom? This was taken in the morning, as you said. So? Samuel asked. So why would Miriam do laundry on the morning they were leaving for the entire weekend? The clothes would be ruined by rain, eaten by bugs, faded by sun. No good Amish housewife would leave washing out for 3 days. The group leaned in closer, examining the photograph with new interest. Mary gasped softly. Is that a vest? It looks too bright to be plain clothing. Levi squinted at the photograph. Among the dark blues and blacks of typical Amish clothing hung something fluorescent yellow-green. His heart skipped as he recognized what it was. That's a police vest. Police! Esther's voice was sharp with surprise. Officer Breener, Levi said slowly, memory returning. Paul Breener. He was close with Aaron. Helped our community often. Fixed fences. Assisted with barn raisings when he was off duty. A good Englishman who respected our ways. I remember him, Joseph nodded. Always polite. Never pushed us to modernize. But why would his vest be in Miriam's washing? Levi studied the photograph more carefully. The vest was clearly visible now that they knew what to look for. The word police partially visible on the bright fabric. I don't remember him ever getting it back, Levi said. After Aaron disappeared and the investigation ended, Officer Breener still came around sometimes, checking on us, on Mother. But I don't recall him asking about a vest. My Ribka, may she rest in peace, Levi continued, referring to his late wife who had died 3 years prior. She packed away many of Aaron and Miriam's belongings after it became clear they weren't returning. Perhaps the vest is still with their things. Esther sat down the photograph with trembling hands. Perhaps we should speak to Officer Breener about this. It may mean nothing, but after 10 years, any small thing might help us understand. Mother, Levi said gently. What could he do now? It's been a decade. The English police put the case aside long ago. We chose not to pursue it further ourselves, to accept God's will in this matter. But we've never truly found peace with it, Mary interjected. We claim to accept it, but we gather annually because we can't let go. Perhaps God's will includes us finally seeking answers. I'll locate the vest, Levi decided. If nothing else, I ought to return it to Officer Breener. It's only right. When I do, perhaps I'll bring up this observation regarding the laundry and see what he says. The group murmured their agreement. They spent another 30 minutes examining the remaining photographs and mementos. Aaron's cherished hymnal, Miriam's quilting thimble, drawings the children had created, a corn husk doll that had belonged to Sarah. Each item was handled with reverence, passed from hand to hand, accompanied by a memory or a prayer. Finally, as the clock approached noon, the gathering began to break up. Each family member and friend embraced Levi and Esther, murmuring words of comfort that had been repeated so many times they had worn smooth, like river stones. We'll see you at church on Sunday, Samuel said, settling his black hat on his head. Thank you for hosting this year, Rebecca added. It means a great deal to remember them in a home, not just the meeting house. It was Mother's idea, Levi said, glancing at Esther. She thought perhaps being here, where Aaron spent so much time, might bring us closer to understanding. One by one, the buggies rolled away down the gravel drive until only Levi and his mother remained. Esther began collecting the photographs and papers, her movements careful and deliberate. I'll help you put the furniture back, she offered. No, Mother. Rest. I'll take you home and handle this myself later. Levi went to the kitchen drawer. His fingers found the familiar weight of 2 brass keys on a simple ring. One for Aaron's house, one for the abandoned farmhouse on the separate parcel of land Aaron had owned. They felt cold in his palm, unused for months. They walked to his buggy. One of the few concessions to the modern world their Ordnung allowed was that Levi kept a car for his furniture-making business. Levi helped her into the car, his own heart heavy with the weight of another year passed without answers. As they drove the short distance to his mother's small, tidy house on the family property, he couldn't shake the image of that police vest hanging among his sister-in-law's washing, a bright, incongruous note in what should have been an ordinary morning a decade ago. After dropping his mother at her small house, Levi decided to drive to Erin's house right away. It only took him 10 minutes along the rural roads. Levi had avoided coming here lately. The sight of the empty property never failed to stir up difficult emotions. As he pulled into the overgrown driveway, he noticed how the maple tree Erin had planted the year before his disappearance now towered over the porch, its branches scraping against the roof in places. The key turned stiffly in the lock. Inside, the air was stale and heavy with dust. Pale rectangles on the walls showed where pictures had once hung. Ripka had packed most of the valuable and personal items after the first year, when hope of the family's return had begun to fade. Levi started his search in the obvious places. The hallway closet yielded nothing but mouse droppings and a few wire hangers. The storage room off the kitchen, where Miriam had kept her canning supplies, stood empty except for dusty shelves. He climbed the narrow stairs, each step creaking under his weight. The master bedroom door stood ajar. The bed frame remained stripped of its mattress years ago, but there, at the foot of the bed, sat a wooden chest he remembered. Levi knelt beside it and lifted the lid. The hinges protested but held. Inside, Ripka had carefully arranged items that must have seemed too personal to discard but too painful to keep in daily view. A man's work shirt still bearing the shape of Erin's shoulders, a child's wooden toy horse worn smooth from handling, and there, folded neatly on top, the fluorescent police vest. He lifted it carefully. Police was emblazoned across the back in reflective letters, and on the front, a small patch read P. Briner in neat stitching. The vest was clean, carefully washed and dried by Miriam 10 years ago. Levi closed the chest gently and stood, the vest in his hands. He pulled out his cell phone, another accommodation to business necessity, and scrolled to Officer Briner's personal number. They had exchanged contact information years ago when Briner had helped investigate some vandalism at the furniture shop. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Briner's familiar voice asked him to leave a message. Levi ended the call without speaking. The thought of explaining this over a recording felt wrong somehow. He considered calling the police station directly but hesitated. The Amish relationship with English law enforcement was complicated, respectful but distant. The thought of navigating a phone tree, explaining himself to a dispatcher, possibly being transferred multiple times. No, better to handle this in person, face to face, as was their way. Levi tucked the vest under his arm and made his way back downstairs. He locked the house and started toward his car, then stopped. Something nagged at him. An old conversation with Erin years before the disappearance. His brother had mentioned pressure from developers, people wanting to buy the land for some project. Levi circled around to the back of the house, curious if anything had come of those plans. The view from the back porch showed unchanged farmland stretching to the horizon. Whatever development had been planned, it had never materialized. The same split-rail fences marked property lines. The same grove of oak trees stood sentinel at the far edge of what had been Erin's land. 10 years and nothing had changed. Levi made his way back to his car, placing the vest carefully on the passenger seat. He made a mental note to check the farmhouse. The properties couldn't stand abandoned forever. The New Holland police station was a modest brick building on the edge of town, its American flag snapping in the afternoon breeze. Levi parked carefully and walked through the glass doors, the fluorescent vest tucked under his arm. The interior smelled of coffee and floor wax, and a young officer sat behind a reception desk. "Good afternoon," Levi said, approaching the desk. "I'm looking for Officer Paul Briner. Is he available?" The desk officer, whose nameplate read Jenkins, looked up from his computer screen. "Briner? He's been out in the field since about noon. Can I help you with something? Or take a message?" Levi shifted the vest in his hands. "It's a personal matter. I have something that belongs to him from a while ago." When do you expect him back? Jenkins shrugged. Hard to say with field duty. Could be an hour. Could be end of shift. I can take your information and have him call you. No, thank you, Levi said. I'll try again later. It's something I'd prefer to handle in person. Suit yourself, Jenkins said, already turning back to his screen. He's usually here mornings if you want to try tomorrow. Levi nodded and left the station. Back in his car, he sat for a moment, considering his options. The farmhouse still needed checking, and he was already out this way. He could return to the station later in the afternoon, or perhaps tomorrow morning. He drove out of town, taking the winding road that led to the more rural properties. Aaron's farmhouse sat on 40 acres of good land. Jakob was on his way to his blacksmith shop, located about 15 minutes further into the countryside, separate from his home. He was approximately halfway there, driving through an area dotted with Amish farms, when he noticed something amiss at the Yoder property. Two men, dressed in dark uniforms, stood next to a black truck, and Jakob was backing away from them, his hands raised in a defensive posture. Levi immediately pulled his car over and got out. As he drew nearer, he could hear their voices raised. Told you yesterday and the day before, Jakob was saying in accented English. This land is not for sale. It has been in my family for generations. Times change, Mr. Yoder, one of the uniformed men stated. His uniform was peculiar, dark blue or black, but completely devoid of department patches, badge numbers, or any form of identification. The offer we're making is more than generous. You could buy land elsewhere. Better land. There is no better land than what God has given us to tend, Jakob replied firmly. Please leave my property. The second man took a step closer to Jakob, his stance menacing. You Amish think you can just sit on valuable real estate forever, contributing nothing to progress, to the economy? Is there a problem here? Levi called out, quickening his pace. All three men turned. Jakob's face showed relief at the sight of a familiar face. The two uniformed men exchanged glances. No problem, the first man said smoothly. Just a business discussion. Doesn't look like Mr. Yoder is interested in your business? Levi countered, positioning himself next to Jakob. He's asked you to leave. The second man's jaw tightened. And you are a neighbor, and someone who's about to call the police if you don't respect this man's wishes to be left alone, Levi replied. He pulled out his cell phone, ensuring they could see it. The two men looked at each other again. The first one reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, tossing it on the ground at Jakob's feet. Think about our offer, Mr. Yoder. We'll be back. They walked to their truck with deliberate slowness, as if to demonstrate they weren't intimidated. Levi memorized the license plate as they drove away, though the truck had no company logos or identifying marks. Thank you, Levi, Jakob said once they were gone, bending to pick up the business card. They have been here every day this week, always the same, wanting to buy my land, getting more insistent each time. What do they want it for? Levi asked. Jakob shrugged. They speak of development progress, making better use of the land, but they give no specifics. He paused, looking troubled. You know, something like this happened before about 10 years ago. Different men, but same pressure, same vague talk of development. Then it stopped suddenly. Levi felt a chill despite the warm afternoon. 10 years ago? Around the time my brother disappeared. Yes, now that you mention it, maybe a few months before, Jakob confirmed. Aaron had men visiting him too. I remember he was worried about it. Talked to the bishop. Jakob then trailed off, not wanting to directly mention the disappearance. These men, Levi said. Did they say what company they represent? Jakob handed him the business card. It was plain white, with only a phone number and the words Land Development Associates in simple black text. There were no names, no address. I'm actually on my way to speak with Officer Breener about another matter, Levi said. I'll mention this to him. He's always been a friend to our community. Maybe he can look into whether these men have the right to harass you like this. I would appreciate that, Jakob said. I doubt the English law can do much if they're just asking to buy. Still, it would be good for the police to know. Levi looked down the road where the truck had vanished. Be careful, Jakob. Maybe make sure you're not alone when they come back. Have your sons or neighbors nearby. I will. Thank you again, Levi. God bless you. Levi walked back to his car, troubled by this encounter. As he continued driving toward Aaron's farmhouse, he couldn't shake the feeling that the past was stirring, that old secrets were struggling toward the light. The entrance to Aaron's farmhouse property was marked by two weathered stone pillars that had stood for over a century. As Levi slowed to turn in, he noticed a police patrol car parked on the opposite side of the road, its engine idling. The driver's window was down, and through it, he could see a familiar figure in sunglasses. Officer Paul Breener. Levi pulled over and parked, then walked across the quiet road. As he approached, Breener removed his sunglasses, revealing tired eyes that crinkled with recognition. Levi, Breener said warmly. Good to see you. How are you holding up? Hello, Officer Breener. I'm well, thank you. Levi glanced around the empty road. Are you stationed here today? Seems unusual for someone of your seniority to be on patrol duty. Breener chuckled. Just keeping an eye on the area. Happened to be passing by and saw Aaron's old place. His expression grew more solemn. Hard to believe it's been 10 years. I still think about that case sometimes. That's kind of you to remember, Levi said, touched by the sentiment. Actually, I was looking for you at the station earlier today. I have something to discuss with you about Aaron's case. Oh, Breener's eyebrows rose slightly. Yes, I found something of yours at Aaron's house. Levi walked back to his car and retrieved the vest. This was in a chest with other belongings. I believe it's yours. Breener took the vest, examining it with a puzzled expression. A vest? I don't. He turned it over, saw his name stitched on the patch, and his face cleared. Oh yes, right. This is mine. Completely forgot about it after all these years. How did it end up at my brother's house? Levi asked. Breener handed the vest back through the window and rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. It was that morning, the morning they left. I had stopped by to discuss something with Aaron, and Miriam, being the kind soul she was, invited me in for breakfast. Wouldn't take no for an answer. You know how she was. Levi nodded, remembering his sister-in-law's legendary hospitality. Well, clumsy me. I managed to spill vegetable soup all over my vest. Miriam insisted on washing it for me, said it would stain if left. I protested, of course, but... Breener shrugged. You didn't argue with Miriam Lapp when she decided to help you. I never heard about this visit, Levi said slowly. May I ask what you were discussing with Aaron that morning? Something flickered across Breener's face. Was it nervousness? Oh, it's been so long. I think it was something about neighborhood safety. There were some development plans in the... A decade later, unraveling the mystery of the missing Amish family. The area had residents worried due to impending development plans, and Levi leaned in, listening intently. Aaron, Levi's brother, had indeed mentioned something about it to him once. Private developers aimed to construct a road through the rear of his property. That's right, Breener affirmed, appearing to ease up slightly. There was a firm aggressively trying to acquire land for a project. The community was apprehensive, and the police department collaborated with local officials to put the project on hold. I was likely checking in with Aaron about any safety concerns, ensuring no one was unduly pressuring him. Levi recalled Jakob Yoder's fearful expression from mere moments earlier. Speaking of pressure, Levi interjected. I've just come from Jakob Yoder's farm. 2 individuals in dark uniforms were there, attempting to coerce him into selling his land. They've been harassing him throughout the week. Breener's expression hardened. Dark uniforms? No company identification. None that I could discern, Levi replied. They departed when I threatened to contact the police, but they indicated they'd return. Levi produced a business card. They left this, Land Development Associates, but only a phone number. Breener accepted the card, examined it briefly, then returned it. I'll look into it and speak with Jakob myself. We cannot permit people to intimidate our Amish neighbors. I'd be grateful for that, Levi responded. The community trusts you, Officer Breener. You've consistently treated us well. Breener was about to reply when his gaze shifted past Levi's shoulder, his entire demeanor changing, becoming alert and focused. Levi turned to observe a black truck approaching from the direction of town. It was the same truck from Jacob Yoder's farm. Listen, Levi, Breener quickly stated, starting his engine. I'll definitely follow up on this and talk to Jacob. We should also delve deeper into your brother's case. There might be connections worth investigating. But currently, I have an important meeting I cannot miss. Of course, Levi acknowledged, stepping back. Thank you for your time. Thank you for returning the vest, Breener called out as he drove onto the road. Take care, Levi. Levi watched the patrol car discreetly trail the black truck. It seemed Breener was already investigating the men who had threatened Jacob. He felt a sense of reassurance, knowing the officer was taking immediate action. He drove through the farmhouse gates, noticing how the gravel driveway had become more weeds than stone. The farmhouse itself stood like a weary sentinel, its white paint peeling, shutters askew. The for sale sign he had erected 5 years after the disappearance leaned at an angle, weather-beaten and faded. In 5 years, only a handful of people had expressed interest, and none had pursued an offer. The property, despite its neglect, was beautiful. 40 acres of prime farmland with a sturdy barn and the 2-story farmhouse Aaron had lovingly maintained. However, the Amish community was insular, and English buyers often felt uneasy purchasing property in the heart of plain country. Meanwhile, most Amish families already owned their land or could not afford the asking price. Levi parked and entered the house with his key. Dust particles danced in the afternoon light streaming through dirty windows. He located cleaning supplies in the pantry, remarkably still usable, and commenced the task of making the kitchen presentable. He was sweeping mouse droppings from the corners when he heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the window, he observed a sedan he didn't recognize. A man in business attire emerged, scrutinized the for sale sign, then walked toward the house. Levi met him at the door. Good afternoon, the man greeted with a practiced smile. I noticed the for sale sign. Is this property still available? Yes, it is, Levi confirmed. I'm the owner. Well, managing it for the family. Excellent. I'm very interested. May I look around? Levi gestured him inside. Of course, though I should caution you, it requires work. It's been vacant for some years. The man moved through the rooms with quick, assessing eyes. He seemed less concerned with the house's condition than with something else, continually gazing out windows, checking sight lines, and nodding to himself. What's your asking price? He finally inquired. Levi stated the figure he had settled on 5 years ago. Fair market value for the land and buildings. The man chuckled. Given its condition, I'll offer you half that. That's well below the land value alone, Levi protested. The acreage is in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by Amish farms. Limited development potential. Half your asking price is generous. Levi felt conflicted. The offer was insulting, but the property had remained vacant for so long. Every month meant more deterioration, more expense. I could perhaps come down 15%, but I'll meet you in the middle, the man interrupted, pulling a map from his jacket. Let me show you my plans for the property. He unfurled the map on the dusty kitchen counter. Levi saw the farmhouse property outlined in red with various development notations, but his attention was drawn to another marking. A circled area in the mountain region to the north, indicated with symbols he didn't understand. What's this? Levi asked, pointing to the mountain marking. The man glanced where Levi was pointing and swiftly folded that section of the map underneath. Nothing related to this property. Now, regarding the farmhouse, I'm considering converting it into a country retreat, perhaps a bed and breakfast to cater to tourists interested in Amish country. He continued speaking, but Levi found himself distracted by that glimpse of the mountain marking. Something about it nagged at him, though he couldn't articulate why. After more negotiation, They settled on a price that was less than Levi had hoped but more than the initial insulting offer. It would be enough to cover the remaining taxes and provide something for his mother. Excellent, the man said, producing a business card. Come to my office and we'll draft the paperwork. Can you follow me there now? I'd like to move quickly on this. Levi hesitated. Something felt rushed, but he'd been attempting to sell for 5 years. All right, lead the way. He locked the farmhouse and entered his car. He followed the sedan down the country road. The office building appeared abruptly around a bend in the road, its modern glass and steel construction jarring against the pastoral landscape. It stood alone in what had once been a cornfield, surrounded by a large parking lot that seemed excessive for such a remote location. Levi followed the buyer's sedan into the lot and parked beside it. Impressive facility, Levi commented as they walked toward the entrance, though privately he found the building cold and unwelcoming. We believe in making a statement, the man replied, holding the door open. Professional environment for professional dealings. The interior featured polished floors and minimalist furniture. At a reception desk sat a woman in a dark uniform, the same style as the men who had threatened Jakob Yoder, Levi realized with a start. No company logo, no identifying patches. This is Mr. Lapp, the buyer informed her. He needs visitor registration. Of course, she said, sliding a form across the desk. I'll need your driver's license and signature here, here, and here. The buyer checked his watch. I'll go prepare the contracts. My office is just down the hall when you're finished. He strode away, leaving Levi with the receptionist. Levi fumbled for his license, unaccustomed to such formal procedures. In his world, deals were sealed with handshakes and trust. As the woman typed his information into her computer, movement outside caught his eye. Through the large window facing the parking lot, he saw the black truck from earlier pulling in, and behind it, Officer Breener's patrol car followed at a distance. But instead of stopping, both vehicles continued past the building, heading up the mountain road that curved behind the property. Ma'am, Levi inquired, what's up that mountain road? She glanced up briefly from her typing. I wouldn't know. You'd have to ask Mr. Davidson about that. Mr. Davidson, that's the gentleman buying my property? Yes. She returned to her screen, clearly uninterested in conversation. While waiting for her to finish, Levi wandered toward a display area near the windows. A large architectural model sat under glass, a miniature representation of development plans. He leaned closer, immediately recognizing the topography. There was the mountain. There was the valley where the Amish community had lived for generations. There were the winding roads he'd driven all his life. But in the model, everything was different. Where Amish farms now stood, the model showed commercial buildings, housing developments, shopping centers. His own home, his mother's house, Aaron's properties, Jakob Yoder's farm, all replaced by modern structures. Roads cut through previously untouched land. Only one area remained undeveloped in the model, a spot on the mountain marked with what appeared to be a church or memorial building. Levi studied the small placard beside it. Amish Heritage Memorial, preserving the memory of Pennsylvania's plain people. Memory, not presence. Memory as if they were already gone. His blood ran cold as he recognized the spot on the mountain. It was the same location marked on the buyer's map earlier. He looked out the window again, where dust from the vehicles lingered in the air. Was that where Breener was heading? Sir, I need you to sign these forms. Actually, Levi said, backing toward the door. I just remembered something urgent. Please tell Mr. Davidson I'll need to reschedule. Her eyes narrowed. He's waiting for you. He's prepared all the paperwork. I'll come back later today, tomorrow at the latest. I'm sorry, sir. Mr. Davidson doesn't like to be kept waiting. But Levi was already pushing through the door. Behind him, he heard her pick up the phone, speaking urgently to someone. He jogged to his car, started the engine, and quickly pulled out of the parking lot. The mountain road was rougher than the main routes, designed for logging trucks and maintenance vehicles rather than regular traffic. Levi's car bounced over potholes and washboard surfaces as he climbed higher. The afternoon sun filtered through the canopy of trees, creating a strobe effect that made him squint. He didn't know exactly what he expected to find, but every instinct told him he needed to see what was happening on that mountain. The model's memorial to the Amish, the renewed pressure on landowners, Breener's strange behavior, the connection to events from 10 years ago. It all swirled in his mind like pieces of a puzzle, refusing to fit together. The mountain road grew steeper and more isolated with each mile. Levi's car strained against the grade, and he had to downshift twice to maintain speed. The trees pressed close on both sides, their branches forming a tunnel of green overhead. For nearly an hour he climbed. Levi traveled without encountering any other vehicles or signs of human dwelling, aside from the occasional utility pole marking the path. Eventually, the road leveled out into a cleared space. Through the now less dense trees, Levi noticed Officer Breener's patrol car, parked close to a construction barrier. He turned his vehicle into a small pull-off, partially obscured by bushes, shut off the engine, and stepped out into the crisp mountain air. The construction area, larger than he had anticipated, stretched out before him. Heavy machinery, including a bulldozer and an excavator, lay temporarily inactive, alongside piles of lumber and stone. The building taking shape was indeed designed to resemble an Amish meeting house, yet it was grander and more ornate than any authentic plain structure would be. It embodied a tourist perception of Amish architecture, characterized by pointed roofs and decorative elements that no genuine Amish community would ever endorse. Levi advanced, staying within the cover of the treeline. Through the chain-link fence, he could see Breener conversing with the two men from Jacob Yoder's farm. Their voices carried on the mountain breeze. "Memorial House will be perfect," one of the men was saying. "It will preserve the memory of Amish culture in this region. Tourists adore that sort of thing. They'll arrive by the busload to experience authentic Amish heritage." The other man added, "A sympathetic narrative. How the simple Amish way of life couldn't withstand modern pressures. Very touching. Very marketable." Breener assented. "The development can proceed once the remaining families are persuaded to relocate. How long until?" "This is a long-term endeavor," the first man interjected at. "We've already waited 10 years. We can afford to wait a bit longer. But with your assistance, officer, we can be more convincing this time." The second man, shaking his head, commented, "These obstinate Amish, they don't comprehend progress, don't appreciate what we're offering. Sometimes I believe the only way to handle them is—" He paused, glanced around as if checking for eavesdroppers, then chuckled. "Well, let's just say this place is constructed on Amish bones. Literally, we have them stored right here." Levi's stomach churned. He pressed closer to the fence, straining to hear. "Come," the first man invited Breener. "Let us show you something." They proceeded deeper into the construction site. Levi's gaze darted about and he spotted a hard hat and safety vest hanging on a fence post, likely left by a worker on break. Without a second thought, he grabbed them, put them on, and slipped through an opening in the fence. The vest was too large, the hard hat loose on his head, but from a distance, he might pass for a construction worker. He kept his head down and walked purposefully, trailing the trio from a distance. They halted at the far side of the partially completed building, where the foundation had been poured but walls were only partly erected. One of the men called out to a nearby worker operating a small backhoe. "Dig here," he instructed at pointing to a spot marked with orange spray paint. "Not deep, maybe 3 feet. The worker appeared confused but complied. The backhoe's bucket bit into the earth, lifting soil and gravel. After only a few scoops, the operator paused, peering down at something. "That's enough," the first man declared. He and his associate climbed down into the shallow excavation. Levi crept closer, using a stack of lumber for concealment. He watched in horror as one of the men reached down and pulled something from the dirt. A bone, unmistakably human, probably from a leg. The man handed it to Breener, who accepted it without hesitation, turned it over in his hands, examining it, then dropped it back into the hole. "You see," the second man said, grinning at, "we stored them here, the whole family, plus a few others who got too inquisitive over the years." The first man added, "There will be more in the future. Once we clear out the remaining Amish, kill some if necessary, frighten the rest into leaving, this whole valley will be ours to develop. Shopping centers, housing developments, tourist attractions, something actually productive, not just farmland rotting in the hands of backward people. And you'll help us, won't you, officer?" The second man said to Breener, "Just like before, your position, your reputation in the community, invaluable assets." Breener slowly nodded. "The department trusts me to handle Amish affairs. They won't question my reports." Levi retreated, his entire body trembling. Aaron, Miriam, the children, here, beneath this abominable monument to their memory. He forced himself to move quietly, carefully, back the way he had come. At the fence, he shed the hard hat and vest, leaving them where he had found them. He ran to his car, started it, and drove back down the mountain as fast as he dared. His cell phone showed no signal at the construction site, but halfway down, 2 bars appeared. He pulled over, hands trembling as he dialed 911. "911, what's your emergency?" a voice asked. "My name is Levi Lapp," he said, forcing his voice to remain steady. "I need to report a murder, multiple murders, and police corruption. Sir, please calm down. What's your location?" Levi provided the mountain road markers he had noted. "There's a construction site at the top. They're building a fake Amish memorial. I just witnessed them digging up human bones. Officer Paul Breener is involved. He's corrupt. He's working with developers who killed my brother's family 10 years ago. Sir, these are very serious accusations. Are you certain?" "I saw the bones," Levi's voice cracked. "I heard them talking about killing more Amish families. Please, you have to send someone. Dig where they dug. You'll find the evidence. We're dispatching units now, sir. State police will also be notified, given the allegation of officer corruption. Please remain where you are." Levi waited, engine running, watching the road. Within 15 minutes, he heard sirens. Multiple police cars appeared, racing up the mountain. He followed them back up. At the construction site, organized chaos erupted. Police officers swarmed the area. Breener emerged from the building, saw the police cars, and his face went white. As the 2 developers tried to reach their truck, Levi pulled his car across their path, blocking them. Breener approached him, attempting to maintain his authority. "Levi, what are you doing? Move your vehicle." "I saw everything," Levi said, stepping out of his car. "The bones, my brother's family, maybe others. You helped murder them." "This is ridiculous," Breener stated. "Officers, this man is making wild accusations." But the newly arrived police were already moving. A Sergeant Levi didn't recognize said, "Officer Breener, we need you to step aside while we investigate. These are serious allegations." "This is a misunderstanding," Breener protested. "This man is grief-stricken, imagining things." "Then you won't mind if we look around," the sergeant responded. Teams of officers entered the construction site. Workers stepped back, confused and concerned. Levi pointed toward the excavated area, indicating, "They dug there. The bones are there." 2 officers descended into the pit. Moments later, one of them called out, "Sergeant, we've found human remains here." Breener turned to flee, but a sharp crack, a warning shot, echoed through the air. "Nobody move," an officer commanded. Breener froze, as did the 2 developers who had made it halfway to their truck. Officers advanced, their weapons drawn but aimed downwards. "Hands behind your head, on your knees." One by one, Breener and the 2 men were handcuffed. Breener's face registered utter defeat as he was escorted to a patrol car. The developers attempted to protest, claiming innocence and demanding legal representation, but the officers remained professional and unyielding. "We need to go to their office," Levi informed the sergeant. "The man attempting to purchase my farm, Davidson, is involved in this. He's at the office building situated at the base of the mountain." The sergeant nodded. "We'll handle it. You'll need to come to the station to provide a comprehensive statement." The convoy of police vehicles descended the mountain, lights flashing but sirens now silent. At the modern office building, more police cars had already converged. Officers entered while Levi waited outside. Through the glass walls, he observed Davidson being handcuffed, the receptionist's shocked expression, and papers being confiscated. As they prepared to depart for the police station, Levi glanced back at the mountain. Somewhere up there, concealed for 10 years, his family lay in desecrated ground. But they had been discovered. Finally, they had been found. The New Holland police station buzzed with unprecedented activity. Officers moved purposefully through the corridors. Levi watched through the Sallyport windows as Breener was led inside, his uniform now a stark symbol of betrayed trust. The two developers followed, their earlier arrogance replaced by sullen silence. Davidson was the last to arrive, still in his business suit, his face pale with shock. A detective in a gray suit approached Levi. "Mr. Lapp, I'm Detective Sarah Chun from the State Police. We'll be taking over this investigation, given the circumstances. Would you come with me, please?" She guided him to a small, clean, and sparse interview room furnished only with a table and chairs. A recording device rested between them. "I understand this has been an overwhelming day," Detective Chun said gently. "But I need you to tell me everything from the beginning. Take your time." Levi began with the morning's remembrance service, his voice steady as he recounted discovering the vest in the photograph, finding it at Aaron's house, and his attempt to return it to Breener. He described the encounter at Jacob Yoder's farm, the strange meeting with Breener on the road, the hurried attempt to sell the property, and finally what he had witnessed at the mountain construction site. Detective Chun took notes, occasionally asking for clarification. When Levi finished, she set down her pen. "Mr. Lapp, can you tell me about the original investigation 10 years ago?" Levi shifted uncomfortably. "It was very brief, less than a week. Officer Breener led it. He said he was the liaison for Amish affairs. He asked questions, looked at the house, but..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "We Amish, we don't readily cooperate with outside authorities. It's not our way. Most in the community believed Aaron and his family left voluntarily. Perhaps to visit relatives, perhaps to relocate. When they didn't return, we thought perhaps there had been some conflict we didn't know about. Some reason they chose to stay away. But your brother never mentioned plans to leave?" Detective Chun probed. "Well, he did mention pressure from a property company. They wanted to buy his land. He owned more than most in our community. Not that we have hierarchies exactly, but Aaron had inherited from our father and bought additional parcels over the years. He was substantial in terms of land ownership." Detective Chun nodded. "We found something at Davidson's office that might interest you. A journal, very detailed records of their plans, including entries about Officer Breener." Levi leaned forward. "Breener was part of it. More than part of it. According to what we've read so far, he was the one who organized the kidnapping. He used his position, his trust in your community to get close to your brother. The journal suggests Breener was on their payroll for years, feeding them information about which families might sell, which were vulnerable." Levi felt a wave of nausea. All those times Breener had helped with barn raisings, had directed traffic during harvest, had shown respect for their ways, all of it a lie. "The officer we trusted most," he said quietly. "He ate at our tables, knew our children's names." "I'm sorry," Detective Chun said. "I know this is a terrible betrayal. How did they? What happened to my brother's family? Do you know yet?" "We'll know more after interrogations, but based on the journal and the evidence, we believe they were lured to a remote location. Probably the mountain site where construction wouldn't begin for years. Your brother likely refused their final offer. Things escalated, and then they had to silence the whole family. The children too," Levi finished. "To leave no witnesses. That's our working theory. The DNA results will confirm if the remains are your family, but given that yours is the only Amish disappearance in this area in the past decade, it's highly probable. Did they ever get any land? Was it worth it to them?" Detective Chun checked her notes. "No town records show any sales to their company. After your brother's disappearance, it seems they pulled back. Maybe worried about drawing attention." All those deaths for nothing. They waited 10 years to try again. Levi buried his face in his hands. My brother fought them and we never knew. If I had been here, I was in Ohio then, working. I only moved back after they vanished. If I had known about his struggle with these developers. You can't blame yourself, Detective Chun said firmly. The blame lies with the men who did this. We Amish live in acceptance, Levi said, raising his head. We believe in yielding to God's will, in not fighting the world. But sometimes that acceptance makes us blind to evil. We should have pushed harder 10 years ago. Should have demanded real answers instead of accepting what Breener told us. A knock at the door interrupted them. An officer peered in. Detective, the family member is here. A Mrs. Esther Lapp. My mother, Levi said, standing quickly. He found her in the corridor, her black bonnet slightly askew, her face etched with fear and hope. Their eyes met, and she read the truth in his expression. No, she whispered. No, no, no. Levi caught her as she swayed. They're just bones, Mom. Just bones now. They held each other in the fluorescent-lit hallway. Mother and son united in grief that was a decade old but suddenly fresh. Other officers moved past them respectfully, giving them space for their sorrow. After a time, Detective Chun approached. Mr. and Mrs. Lapp, the forensics. The team received preliminary information and was led to a family waiting room, which was more comfortable than the interview area, featuring softer chairs and tissue boxes readily available. Dr. Martinez, a woman in a lab coat with a professionally compassionate expression, entered and introduced herself, stating she was from the forensics department. She explained that the recovered remains were approximately 10 years old, and based on decomposition and soil analysis, they had found bones of various sizes belonging to an adult male, an adult female, and children of different ages. Esther let out a sound like a wounded animal, and Levi tightened his grip on her hand. Dr. Martinez continued, explaining they would need DNA samples from both of them to confirm identity, but noted that the ages and numbers matched their missing family members. Can we see? Esther asked, her voice barely audible. Dr. Martinez hesitated, explaining, they're not intact remains, Mrs. Lapp. However, she added that if they felt it would help, she could show them some of the evidence that had been collected. They were then guided to another room where evidence bags were laid out on a sterile metal table. Inside were cleaned and tagged bones, fragments of fabric, a small shoe that appeared to fit a young child, and other personal effects that had endured a decade in the ground. With trembling hands, Esther reached into her bag and took out a photograph, the same one from the remembrance service. It showed Aaron and Miriam on the porch, with their 5 children arranged by height, all smiling in the bright sunshine of a morning from 10 years ago. She held it up, comparing the vibrant faces in the picture to the remnants on the table. It's them, Esther whispered. My son, my grandchildren. They stood in that sterile room, looking at all that remained of a family that had once shared laughter, prayers, and work. Levi reflected on all the years of uncertainty, of hope that had gradually diminished into acceptance, and of questions that had seemed destined to remain forever unanswered. Now they knew. The knowledge was terrible, yet it also brought a sense of relief. No longer would they wonder if Aaron had chosen to leave, if they had somehow failed him, or if the family was living a different life somewhere else. They were here. They had never departed. We'll find them a proper resting place, Levi stated quietly. In the cemetery with the rest of our people. They'll come home. Esther nodded, tears streaming down her weathered face. She touched the photograph one last time before carefully returning it to her bag. They had finally found Aaron's family, and although the discovery brought sorrow, it also marked the beginning of peace.